What is a ghetto spread? Right? You heard me talk about this a few times before, so let's answer that question once and for all. What is a ghetto spread? A ghetto spread is taking the implied move for earnings and then doubling it, aka two standard deviations away from the anticipated move. Okay, so how do we get the expected move? I like to use Market Chameleon, and I go into the earnings section, implied moves, and IV, and we've got Carvana on here. And it says the anticipated move is 15.9%. All right, 15.9%. So what we do is I'm just going to round it, right? And we're going to take 16% and we're going to double it from where price action is right now. All right, so that means that we're going to take this to 32%. And that is supposed to give us the strike prices that we are targeting, right? That's supposed to give us the strike prices that we are targeting. So in this instance, I would just say go to 30%. And that, I mean, a 170 strike call is probably be what we would target. So let me just open up my broker here. I'm just going to open up my phone. And I'm going to make sure that we put the proper options in here. So we're looking at a CVNA 170 strike call for the expiration of next week. Okay, so August 2nd is the one that we are looking at for Carvana for the 170. And then what we do is then we take that exact same measurement to the downside. So we measure 30% down. That gives us a strike price of roughly, let's just call it 95, right? Let's call it 95 just to be safe. So a 95p with the exact same expiration, August 2nd, or just for the expiration of next week when the earnings is, right? Now, a lot of the times I do suggest taking these ghetto spreads early because these stocks, typically the ones that we do for these ghetto spreads, are very volatile. Given that they're very volatile, typically this leads to explosive moves in price action, right? Even before the earnings happens. So if you take the put and the call, a lot of the time, because the implied volatility will continue to rise prior to the earnings, those puts and calls can both actually go up. Even if price only goes up or only goes down, a lot of the time, those calls and puts can actually increase both in value. All right, a lot of the time, they can actually both increase in value. Okay, so that's why I like taking the ghetto spreads early and often. So here's the deal. The 95 put, okay, so the 95p is trading at $74 as I type this, okay? And then the 170C is trading at 195 as I type this. Now, the C is pretty expensive, right? At $195, that's pretty expensive. So what I would say is maybe we can even take a little bit more risk, right? With a little less money on the table. And what we could do is we could do a Carvana 175C instead of the 170. Okay, for the same expiration. And then that contract, okay, that contract is currently trading at 150. Okay, so they're still both relatively expensive. All right. So they're both relatively expensive no matter what you do. But having said that, we have traded the Carvana ghetto spread twice already. And both times since we've traded it, it has led to over 1,000% in gains because Carvana is so fucking volatile. So just understand that if you don't have the cash to do this ghetto spread, that's okay, right? Because this is a fairly expensive one. You're going to have to put on a minimum of 150 and 75. So you're going to put on basically a bare minimum of about $225 at a bare minimum, right? Arguably, you could put it on as high as $300 if you took the 170 call. The reason the 170 call is so juiced out right now is because of this big move that it's made so far today of 7%. So that's why you're seeing the calls are kind of juiced out a little bit. So if you want, you could wait until next week, right? You could wait until Monday to take this trade, and maybe some of these options contracts will have come down a little bit. Okay? But that is what we look at for a ghetto spread. And the idea being is the reason it's called ghetto is because the options are supposed to be cheap. And the reason it's a spread is because you're taking in options on both sides of the trade. The idea behind this is, though, is that there's logic behind two standard deviated moves. Beyond the fact that there's logic behind two standard deviated moves, you have a reason for the stock, right, to take this spread because every fucking earnings, this thing is so volatile, right? It is super fucking volatile, 15%. This one was 32%. This one here was 33%. So like you guys can see that the earnings are relatively really volatile, right? So if we have another volatile earnings, you could potentially turn this, $200 to $300 into like $1,500 or better, right? Like it really could be like that. Now, it's not a guarantee. It's never a guarantee because anything at any point could happen at any time, right? And we hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. But these ghetto spreads, right, are meant to turn a small sum of money into a larger sum of money. It is not meant to make you rich overnight. So you are not supposed to be trading, 20 of these fucking contracts. When I do the ghetto spread, I'm just doing one of each. And I'm turning a small amount of money into a large amount of money, or I'm walking away with a small loss, right? That's what it is at the end of the day. Okay? So that is what a ghetto spread is and what we are looking at in terms of a ghetto spread for Carvana. All right, I'm going to go ahead, stop this recording, and then we're done.